Okay, so well, it's great to have you all here. We are going to talk some exciting stuff, DeFi, NFTs. Yeah, let's maybe start with telling everybody who you are, Doofy. So, or Christian, you tell me the way we call you.
Yeah, either or, Christian or Doofy, probably more known as Doofy. So who I am, I'm just I guess an NFT enthusiast these days. I got into the NFT space over a couple of years ago now with ZedRun, and that was more of a hobby at the time. And since then, I've sort of branched out into I don't know how many NFT projects I've been involved in now, but I would say I've got a core sort of four group of NFT projects that I'm really focusing on that are utility based, and yeah, just really enjoying the space and enjoying to see where it's come from and where it's going into the future.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Well, we have here Oscar and Barney as well, usual on Defi Clinic. They are the expert in DeFi. And but now, you know, the two spaces, they're all coming together, which is the most exciting things. And that's why we are going to be talking today on our Rave Friday, which is your morning in Australia and is our evening and night in the UK and Gibraltar. So it's going to be fun. What the best way to spend Friday?
It should be good.
All right, so maybe, I don't know, I pass it to you, Oscar and Barney, and then maybe you can just give a quick intro of Umbria, and then we can just talk a bit about the bridge and actually how we started with ZedRun.
Sure, okay. So I'm Barney, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Umbria network. And basically, at Umbria, we're trying to solve all of the sticking points that stop users coming into the space and stop users interacting with all the interesting things that are around in the space. And so one of the things that we found quite early on is that it's very difficult to move your cryptocurrency from one blockchain to another. It can be very expensive and very time consuming. And a lot of people don't have, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of cryptocurrency. And for people that don't have that, it used to be basically economically impractical to move your assets from one blockchain to another just because it was so expensive. And so we built the Umbria Nani bridge, which is essentially a way for you to move assets from right now Ethereum to Polygon, but we'll be adding more blockchains in the future for 10 times cheaper than the official Polygon bridge, and also 10 times faster as well. And so we found that that has been super useful to NFT projects in particular, and people looking to participate in NFT projects, particularly on Polygon, but also just moving assets between the two blockchains. And so that's where ZedRun kind of fit into our system really nicely. There was a bit of a gap in the market where the ZedRun community were looking to purchase ZedRun horses on the Ethereum blockchain and then interact with all of the interesting ZedRun games and things and breeding and things like that you can do on Polygon, and they were having difficulty getting their assets from one blockchain to another. And so now that we've implemented this bridge that's much quicker and much faster, the community over there has really found that useful for interacting with ZedRun.
Exactly. And I guess I'll just follow from there. So what we're doing now with Umbria is we're hooking up with other NFT projects and NFT platforms and just providing this cross-chain bridging solution and enabling their users to be onboarded onto Polygon way more easily than was previously possible with the official Polygon bridge, which was, like Barney said, extremely expensive, but also really slow and kind of difficult to use.
Okay, so basically, what was, I mean, Doofy, you can maybe tell us what was the experience, the bad experience that people have using ZedRun and the bridge or any other bridges?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Umbria was actually a really big turning point for a lot of users in the space. It was the first time that you could really have quick and cheap access to your funds, or if you needed to do something, or if there was a deal that happened for a horse that went up for sale, it was the first real opportunity for you to quickly move money from Ethereum mainnet into Polygon and either purchase a horse or enter a race or do anything like this. It really was a game changer. But before that, it was like, for me personally, I was either using just the ZedRun website, which just essentially used the Polygon main wallets to transfer, which took anywhere from, 15 minutes sometimes to half an hour if the network was really down, just to deposit. And if you wanted to withdraw, sometimes you were waiting up to 7-8 hours. I remember waiting for that. And that was actually, I remember one time there was a drop that happened, and this was like one of the first drops since Zed had the sort of boom, and there was a lot of users, and there was a Z1s on there for sale. And I had about 7 Ethereum at the time, or 8 Ethereum stuck in the ether of transferring over. And it was a nervous wait. Luckily, it did transfer in time, and I was able to pick one of those Z1s up. But, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of other stories out there of people having to miss drops or miss purchase horses or anything like that because they were waiting 7-8 plus hours sometimes for a withdrawal or something like that.
Yeah, and for users who are not as tech savvy as yourself and not as integrated into the NFT community and don't understand the technology as much as you do, that's probably like even more kind of heart-wrenching for them, as than someone who kind of gets what's going on.
Absolutely. New users. It's something that I'm working with some new projects now as well. And, it's always the hard question of, do you do all of these drops or release these NFTs on the Polygon network, or do you release them on the Ethereum mainnet? The main problem is mass adoption. And that for a new user into an NFT space, for example, if this was just their first ever NFT purchase, or they're still fairly new to the space, it's quite a daunting step, even in that sort of early stage, and trying to learn and understand the blockchain or purchase Ethereum, or why is it called wrapped Ethereum, on, what are the names, what does wrapped Ethereum mean? And there's so much confusion there. So as a project, if you're trying to have that mass adoption, more often than not, you have to then release on Ethereum. But now what we're starting to be able to see with Umbria and these other platforms that allow you to, within the same website, fast and cheap, convert that Ethereum onto Polygon network and back again, it takes away that level of, I guess, education needed in order to be able to swap that over.
Do you think that now that bridging those assets has become easier and has become more of like a standard practice, do you think that NFT platforms are feeling the pressure now that they have to deploy on Polygon and provide some kind of like gamified utility, or some kind of different utility that Ethereum might not be able to provide just by itself, like the Ethereum network?
I think in terms of the question, I actually think that the users are the main benefactor here of this happening, because at the end of the day, it's mostly them who do pay these gas fees and these have the issues that come along with the Ethereum network. Obviously as a project, you do have that a little bit, but it's mostly the user that gets the benefit out of it. And if you have somewhere that's, trusted first and foremost, that you can either go to a website or have a widget or have some level of simplicity in just, I need to just essentially put this onto the game network within their own platform or within their own website. So you're not really going to random places throughout the internet or the ether, and bring that trust back into it. For a new user, that's where it's really important. And then it comes with its benefits of, like I said, saving on what can be extraordinary gas prices in the middle of drops and all these other things. When you have gas wars happening, the user is the one that actually benefits. But then, in the flip side of that as well, if a user comes in with a certain amount of Ethereum, then the project benefits as well, because they're looking to spend that Ethereum anyway. And that gas money that would have normally just gone to the miners is now going back into the project where it should be as well.
I totally agree that these sticking points are kind of one of the main problems with like mass adoption in the space as well, and the new users are just struggling so much with all of these like little janky things that they have to do to actually get to where they need to be. For example, having to add into MetaMask all of the RPC information for Polygon, the chain ID and where the explorer is and all that kind of thing, just to connect their wallet to Polygon and actually see what their assets are. So for example, like if you're moving Ethereum onto the Polygon chain into wrapped Ethereum, it doesn't just show you on your wallet, for example, that you've moved it. You have to add that token then into your wallet, and then it will then display that you have the wrapped Ethereum on your wallet. And little things like that, I think, are really the main reason that we haven't seen, true mass adoption in the space. And until we have projects and technologies that are ironing out all of these problems and making it super clear and easy for people that aren't, NFT enthusiasts, then we'll, maybe see a bit more adoption in the space.
And do you think that that is a consequence of this technology being kind of a new technology? And so like the standard, software frameworks and ways to develop it and ways to deploy this, new blockchain technology. It's not like the internet that's been around for like 30 years, where everyone understands like how you should build a website, how you should build web applications. Do you think that the reason that it is difficult to use and it is cumbersome to use and there are sticking points is because the technology is so brand new?
Yeah, and I think that the innovation in this space is 10 times faster than something like innovation in any other particular sector. I think that things are moving so quickly right now that the community has a general ethos of moving really quickly and just building stuff, not really thinking too much about how it all fits together at the moment, and then kind of figuring that stuff out later, because there's so much innovation happening, and that's kind of where the money is as well. There might not be that much money in making sure that your project is super compatible with all these other things, and so maybe that's something that will be, important in the future. And I guess in a way we are seeing that with things like cross-chain bridges and kind of gluing all the different blockchains together. But at least for the last 2 or 3 years, from what I've seen, projects aren't really too concerned about connecting with other projects and building something. It's more, a lot of isolated pockets of innovation doing lots of, different things kind of in a bubble.
Yeah, and that also feels a little bit like to me that a lot of projects aren't that concerned with their longevity as opposed to what they can do right now. And that sort of approach to launching a project doesn't lend itself very well to being like compatible or easy to use across time, rather than just sort of like a frantic burst of energy to create something that is, compelling right now, rather than something that will like survive across time.
Yeah, we'll do. As an NFT enthusiast the last couple of years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of NFT projects come and go.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell the ones that have really been thinking long term and the ones that are really thinking short term. Look, the long term thinkers, they tend to be just that little bit slower, a little bit more thought out, and a little bit more purposeful. It's really hard in the NFT space to get not caught up in overhyped projects, and there are a dime a dozen these days. It's actually quite I guess it's not scary, but it's something to be mindful of, especially if you're a new user. Just because a project or a platform has 100,000 followers on Twitter and 60,000 Discord members before a drop, that can actually be a warning sign. And I have more often than not of late seen that as a warning sign. I get about 100 to 200 spam messages per day of whitelists, trying to hype things up, and more often than not that can be essentially what it is. And again, I'm going to talk generally here, that they are absolutely not all like this, but sometimes what can happen is you have all of these flippers coming in, getting whitelist spots, pushing up the numbers, creating overhype, and then what you see is these whitelist opportunities. People purchase it. Project looks really good. They're minting for 0.2 Ethereum. The floor is now 2 Ethereum before the actual main drop. Main drop happens, and the floor just absolutely tanks. And it's hard to recover from there, to be completely honest. I haven't seen too many projects do a great recovery from that format. The projects that I'm looking to get into now are the ones that are a little bit more, I guess, not as hyped in the beginning. They've got a slow burn. They're looking to just put pure content out there. They're not asking for people to do phishing tweets and giveaways and everything else before the game or the NFT has really put some level of technology into the space. And they have trust in the word of mouth in what they're building. Those are the products that I'm investing heavily into. I of course get caught up in hyped projects as well, and I guess that for me it's a gamble, because if they do take off, they really can take off as well.
But
It sounds to me like you go, Steffi.
I just wanted to ask, Doofy, for you, is like more about the excitement to play the game, or is more about making money with your NFTs?
It's a really, really good question. Me as an NFT investor, depending on the project, will invest for different reasons. You know, I invested very heavily into a NFT project with Alice in Wonderland called the Wonder Quest. And for me going into that project, I simply did not care if that made money or lost money. I believed in the artist, and I guess Alice in Wonderland had been a part of my journey growing up as an Aussie DJ, especially in the space. And, you know, I remember seeing her live, and when she came out with this project, I was just like, I don't care if this is going to be good or bad. I want to be involved. I want to support the artist, and I want to be there. Of course, everyone wants to make money in the end, but that's not what it was about for me. You know, then you've got other ones similar to that where, you know, you just simply love the art. I remember getting into Skullpunk's hideout, which was a slow burner. I think their drop took 2 days to sell out. And I just kept buying more and kept buying more because I was actually just a fan of the art. And so I wanted to, again, invest into the project and help that project get off. Where then, you know, obviously you see ones that have a really great vision. They have the utility, they have the either gamification or they have the utility behind the NFT, and you can see where they're trying to take the project, and they're not going to be something that you can necessarily make a lot of money on instantly. You know, BYOP, biopills and the bioverse, that was a massive slow burner. You know, it took 3 months, 4 months of the floor absolutely dipping before they started to really ramp back up again. And the true believers, the ones who held their NFTs, are absolutely the ones that are reaping the rewards now. And you can, if you see what they're doing in the bioverse, they just had their land sale yesterday, sold out 10,000 plots of land, and their project is just going leaps and bounds. But if you look back 2 months ago, 3 months ago, it would have been very, very easy to FUD the project and say that was almost a failure, and they've just all of a sudden turned it on. So if you believe in the long-term vision, that's where I want to be. I want to be in the space that a project takes 6 months, 12 months to get off the ground, get it right, and then it really takes off. But then, of course, everyone's here to make money as well. So there's some projects that I set my sights on and look for a quick opportunity, you know, to see if I can make some short-term games as well to, I guess, fund those long-term visions is more the reason.
Totally agree about the NFTs with utility being like your main, the thing that you're mainly interested in. It's the same with me. One of the projects that I really like is Avegotchi. It's a project where they have like little Tamagotchi characters, and then if you put a certain asset into your Avegotchi, that then gets put into Aave and earns interest for you, basically. So it's an NFT where the utility is you earn interest on your cryptocurrency. And that was kind of one of the first, I guess, NFT projects that really had like a utility beyond the art. You know, we had the first wave of things like CryptoPunks and Bored Apes and all that kind of thing come in. And then people kind of started getting a little bit bored of just seeing NFTs where the sole purpose was scarcity and art. And then now we're seeing, you know, a whole bunch of projects with utility. And this is where I really think it's starting to get exciting, because there's so many things that NFTs could be useful for, because an NFT in a lot of ways is just a key that can be used to unlock something. And what it unlocks, you know, that can be basically infinite. It could be anything you want it to be, whether it be access to a portfolio of assets that earns you interest, or access to something else entirely that no one's even thought of yet. But that project, because they're one of the first NFT platforms that really had like a decent utility, particularly in the DeFi space, that's why I'm bullish on those guys.
That's an interesting one. I haven't heard of them. I'll have to check it out.
Let's maybe talk a bit about the Red Village that you know is a project that you are supporting, and we also been looking with Umbria as well to help community.
Yeah, and we all have Red Village NFTs as well.
Exactly.
You should probably say that. We all have
I even have one. Listen, I even have one, and which is Oscar fault.
Yeah, I remember coming along and being like, you need to get one of these. This is going to be really cool. This is going to be like ZedRun on steroids.
It's a really, really interesting one. I think that they're really bringing a lot of, learnings from the space into something that has an opportunity to really take off, in this space. ZedRun in itself, I think there's a lot of people in there who, were never horse racing fans. They just sort of getting into that sort of space now, but knowing the cryptocurrency NFT DeFi space, there are a lot of gamers or ex-gamers or grew up with RuneScape or Diablo or World of Warcraft. Pick your poison. I'm sure you spent a few hours playing one of those games or similar, and so I think that it's the first one that I've really seen that has had the opportunity to take that space. There's been a lot of teased games that seem to be just taking a little bit of time to get to that space. Illuvium, Guild of Guardians, just to mention a couple, and I'm sure they will get there, and I'm sure they will have a great platform to work on. But the simplicity from what is coming into you can just get this tournament, this champion and fight in tournaments. It's bringing something different, and it's bringing a buzz back to the community where it has been a little bit, I don't want to use the word stale, but it has felt a little bit stale in this sort of tournament style NFT gaming. And it's bringing that excitement back where you can challenge your mate into a one-on-one fight. And if you're having an argument or a little back, it's like, just let's go jump in the Red Village and settle this, and let's let our champions do the talking. It's bringing that back to the space, which is great.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Red Village has like a broader what's the word for this? More people will be interested in that genre, I think, than ZedRun. Not to say that ZedRun is, a bad genre or anything like that, and it's obviously been very popular. But like you said, RuneScape, World of Warcraft, I was definitely addicted to those as a child, and know a lot of people that were also addicted to those sorts of games. And so the amount of people that I think will really connect with the Red Village as an RPG style NFT game, that's definitely going to be, something I'm going to keep an eye on very closely, and I think it'll be very popular in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, it's definitely a very compelling format that we're all used to. I think a lot of people who are joining the NFT space are sort of feeling very lost and confused as beginners as to, where they need to go and how it all works and what sort of projects they should be getting involved with. So it's definitely a very compelling proposition to say, here is a platform that draws inspiration from some of the classics like World of Warcraft and RuneScape. And people can go, I remember those games, so well. They have a place in my heart. Maybe I'll join this project and see how it goes. So from that perspective, I think it's very, very strong indeed.
I kind of like when you said, if you have an argument with somebody, let's just go and play and I'm going to smash you there. So it's like brilliant.
There's been so many conversations already that have just been like that. It's like, let's put a pin in this and we'll wait till the Red Village is open and we can settle it in the arena.
So what is the superpower that the one that you have got? What do they have? I mean, I have got Arch. Okay.
Archer, yep.
Okay. What are yours?
Oh, I went and bought a few of them. I got 28 myself, and my wife got 28. Yes, and then I went and bought a heap more.
One is worth $500,000 or something. Is that one of yours?
$500,000?
Yeah, I think so. I was looking the most expensive one.
Oh, it's a purchase. I haven't got any of mine for listed for sale. I guess I did get very lucky in the drop. I will say that. I'm extremely happy that the team did everything above board and on IPFS, and everything was trackable on chain, and just to make sure that nothing could have happened, because obviously there have been projects in the past where they haven't done that. And when I saw my champions, I couldn't be more happy because I did get very lucky. And I even had one of my mates coming at me. I was just like, mate, go look at the JSON file. Like, it's all there. Sometimes you just get lucky. So I do have some very rare NFTs that I wouldn't even consider selling for less than a lot of money right now, before the game is even launched. But it's...
When the game is launched, let's just remind everybody.
It's looking to be the last we've heard from the guys is we're on track for a January launch at this point. You know, all things even. Anytime you work in development, especially in a blockchain game style development, things can change very quickly. But the last I've heard is everything is on track, which is really good.
Okay, so
I mean, that's for sure. We've Barney and I are both developers in the blockchain space, as you know. So we're definitely used to, you know, unexpected consequences of deploying particular code. But I think like another thing that's very very common in the blockchain space is for projects to have like extreme technical debt. And so they say, I'm going to launch this thing in February, actually no March, actually no April, and then you actually never see the thing launched at all. So there's definitely something very valuable about a project that launches its stuff on time. And I think there's like quite a lot of room for forgiveness for projects who might be a little bit late on their deployments and things like that, because I think we have this kind of culture in the space, especially in the NFT space, to make a lot of massive promises about the technology that we're going to deliver, and then not really know how we're going to get there in the delivery.
Yeah, and I think that's why communication is so important between developers and the community that they're kind of hosting, because there are so many aspects of blockchain development that are still, you know, not that particularly standardized and not that well known by a lot of developers. And so it can be difficult sometimes, you know, developing along and then coming into a roadblock and not having anyone else who's even seen that problem before and not really knowing how to, you know, overcome an obstacle like that. And so deadlines in cryptocurrency especially seem to be more difficult to estimate than let's say another version of software development. So communication between project members and community is always, I think, one of the most important things whenever looking at a project.
I think what would be really beneficial in this space, and there are projects that are doing this well. And look, I've absolutely been in those ones as well, where just keep missing deadlines. But I think there's actually quite a large educational gap between the developers and the project themselves and the community. It took me a long time to understand the differences between blockchain technology and, for example, simply making a game. And it can be quite frustrating if you don't understand it, to be completely honest. If you're coming from a place of just being a gamer, especially where you see games moving so quickly and what they're able to do within the space of 6 months to a year, essentially redevelop whole games sometimes, or at least redevelop a good chunk of them. And so when you come in from that space that does move quite quickly and has, you know, this opportunity to change things fast, it can be frustrating when you're just sitting there going, why can't you just do this? Like, surely this is just a simple thing. I think that if coming back to your point of communication, I would love to see the space take ownership and actually helping educate the communities a little bit more. I know it's going to take away from time in project, or it's going to have to involve funds to some degree for a dedicated communication person, but I think it will do leaps and bounds for certain projects out there who are on the front foot, who are sort of navigating this space, just to help us, to take us along for the journey, you know. And that's where I've seen the Red Village work really well. They've involved the community from day one. You know, they made an announcement. The community wasn't necessarily happy with it. They put it out to a vote and then worked with what the community want. And so you need that back and forth with your community. The BYOP guys, they're simply just, they're almost in a different space where they haven't missed a simple deadline, or they haven't overpromised, underdelivered a single time. So they don't really need to have that yet, which is, I guess, a weird space to be in, because I've never seen this happen before. And I think that's probably where Zed is missing something right now. You know, if I can give you some different examples of what's working well, what doesn't need to be really worked. And then on the other side to that, someone like a ZedRun, where it's just communication has been their biggest problem. But the problem is that they have been the one that have paved the way for all of these games and all of these platforms to essentially be here today. And I think the community needs to understand that they are on the front foot, they are leading the way, and they are doing things before anyone even thought of doing them. So we need to give them their time to do it, but also you need to let us know what's going on so we can come with you on the journey as a community.
Yeah, I think as pioneers, they're doing stuff that is so technically complicated, and they have such a massive community now. It's probably quite difficult to juggle all the huge responsibilities they have as one of the pioneering projects. If you go onto their Discord, you can just see like a massive stream of comments nonstop of people talking about their project, and it's a huge community full of people. And so I'm sure they have their hands more than full with support tickets and things like that to deal with.
Passionate community. It's fun.
Doofy, how important is interoperability for you between games?
Sorry, I missed that one. Well,
how important is for you interoperability across games, or across, let's say, moving NFTs from one game to another?
I'm super excited about it, to be completely honest. I think it's going to be the next, I don't want to say the next big thing. That sounds so cheesy, but it's the next step in this space, isn't it? Again, apologies, I keep talking about the same projects over and over and over, but they're the ones that I just see leading the space at the moment. But again, for myself, but the bioverse, this idea that you can have this pill that is a consumable across the whole NFT space, that you can simply take this pill to either change your perception of something, or go into Decentraland or Sandbox and have an artist playing their music, and you can have a one-of-one experience and do all these things. Or you can simply utilize this pill to get a power up in another game, or something like that, or get a health regeneration or anything like that. It seems crazy, and I'm really excited for this space. there was a lot of talk on the Red Village general chat of let's bring our Zed horses over here and do some jousting. They would obviously need some armor to change, bring the two different styles of game together. But more and more projects are partnering up, looking for partners within the game, looking to work together. And I think that's what's really exciting, because we'll see a lot of cross-pollination between developers and projects that, as a user, you're the winner, right? It's going to be a lot of fun.
Really interesting to see how NFTs seem to lend themselves very closely to virtual reality and augmented reality, and how a lot of people have kind of drawn the connection between, on one side, having a virtual reality or augmented reality experience, and then also having NFTs as a part of that. It seems to be not just one group of people that have had that idea, but it seems to be an idea that keeps coming up in the NFT space.
I guess that is like the underlying premise behind the ERC 721 NFT standard, which is just that you have this token, it's a unique asset, and it can represent something. And you can take that representation and plug it into different areas of the metaverse, this game over here or that game over there. And there's been quite a few projects who've said just that, and said, here are NFTs. They're NFTs that can be plugged in somewhere else. They're not meant to just stand alone. They're meant to be used in other games and other areas of development. And so, yeah, like we've just been speaking about, I think that's a very interesting sector that's going to be growing in the next sort of evolution of NFTs, creating an asset which is just this kind of standalone thing that proves that you own something that is scarce, and you can represent that NFT in any way that you like.
Well, that's kind of like with fashion. I mean, in a way, you get an NFT and you can bring it into different metaverses. But the question is really compatibility across, these metaverses, and is the code of the NFT able to do that? Or you need to have different kind of bridges, or Umbria, for example, that is going to be able to plug in an NFT that is on Polkadot, to one that is on Ethereum, to one that is on, Cardano. I mean, how we are thinking about this scenario, this development.
Well, one thing that developers have been doing on Ethereum is they've been creating these like ERC standards. So the first standard they created was not the first, but the most significant was ERC 20, where you had all these ERC 20 tokens that could be used kind of like coins, like Bitcoin could be used, but on the Ethereum network. And then someone came along and said, well, what about ERC 721, which is a non-fungible token, as in tokens that can't be added together, that are just standalone unique assets. And now that we have these standardized token standards, other developers and other projects can come in and look at that standard and say, how can I factor that into my project? And then that is sort of like a version of interoperability. You know, as long as it's all based on these standards that we've all decided are the standard, then it's a lot easier for new projects to come along and say, I want to implement that standard in a way that's compatible across the board, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the thing that's going to be the challenge in the entire blockchain space in general, not just in Ethereum, is getting everyone to agree on certain standards across blockchains so that things can become interoperable in a way that isn't just infinitely complicated. Because we saw that with the internet, all of these internet protocols like TCP, UDP, HTTP, HTTPS, all that kind of thing. Everyone can talk to each other in the same way, and that makes it very easy to connect each other. But right now we have a bunch of different blockchains, Cardano, Solana, Ethereum, and they don't really have the same set of standards. They might be similar, and they might have the same kind of smart contract architecture or ethos underneath. But until we have some very well-defined set of standards, whether that be because of one project kind of overtaking everyone else and everyone deciding that that's the standard, or if there's a whole bunch of different projects that all decide that there's one way that they're going to do it. Until we have that, I think it's going to be very difficult to be truly interoperable in the space.
And that's probably the reason that Polygon was so successful, because the reason, well, what Polygon did was they came along and they said, we are going to deploy all of our network to be fully compatible with anything that's deployed on Ethereum. So if you've deployed some kind of smart contract dApp on Ethereum, you can easily deploy the same exact thing without any code changes on Polygon. And so now we have this kind of set of standards on Ethereum that has been applied to Polygon, which has a whole bunch of advantages like cheaper transactions and faster transactions. So you can take all of the great work that's been done on Ethereum and deploy it on Polygon and have sort of the next generation of the NFT space or the DeFi space or anything like that. And because those two cryptocurrency networks have that level of compatibility, it makes it easier for bridges and things like that to increase that interoperability and enable people to move assets more freely and things like that. So I guess we're kind of in like an arms race between all of these different networks right now to decide which ones standards are going to reign supreme. And even networks that are not very strongly tied to Ethereum, such as Solana, are implementing some of the same standards to increase that level of interoperability between them. And so now there's just this kind of like tug of war between all these different networks that are the popular networks, you might call them, to kind of sort out at the end of the day what are going to be the standard practices. But as far as I'm concerned, I think Ethereum is leading the way on that, and everyone's kind of basing what they're doing on sort of a version of what Ethereum has already done. But Barney, would you say you agree to that or not so much?
Yes, totally agree. Ethereum was the OG smart contract blockchain, at least, that was popular. And I think that a lot of the decisions they've made with their architecture make sense. A lot of the stuff they've done clearly works, and people like how it works. People like coding in Solidity. It makes sense. It looks very much like JavaScript, and so people are familiar with it. And so they've done all the right things to make it easy for the developers to code on. And so we're going to be seeing a lot more of that style of smart contract blockchain, I think.
I want to ask Doofy a question, something that we discussed last week about NFTs on Ethereum and NFTs on Polygon. So as more and more projects are going on Polygon, how do you feel about holding an NFT that is only on Ethereum and is not on Polygon? Do you feel like it's more precious, or do you feel it, right, maybe it's just better to buy an NFT on Polygon?
I think it mostly comes down to what is the NFT and its utility, and how many times am I going to have to interact with that NFT. I guess the word NFT is it's so broad now, where you can literally have one that you purchase to put on a TV screen to hang on your wall as art, or you can have something that you interact with hundreds of times a day. And so when I'm looking at a project and I'm starting to understand how many times I'm going to have to interact with it, or what I need to do with it, if it's not on something like Polygon, I will absolutely, or at least have it in their roadmap to migrate to Polygon. I will absolutely not touch it with a 10-foot pole. I was at ZedRun before Polygon came out, in terms of, you know, utility for Zed, and I was there for not only the migration, but I was there for a long time where we had to pay gas fees to enter a race. We had to pay gas fees for breeding. We had to pay gas everywhere. You know, and it was a time where you would, for example, you know, get in a $10 race entry and you're racing for $120 and you're paying $30 in gas to enter the race. And so when you have something like that, where you have something that is so microtransactional and you need to interact with it multiple times a day, if you're not in that space, I just simply can't look at it. But the biggest problem is that it's still a new space. And if you look at the world and how many people are in cryptocurrency, then you look at how many of those are in NFTs, then you look at how many of those are in NFT gaming or NFT, I guess, what's the word I'm thinking, like utility in terms of the space, and you just keep slicing the pie, and there's not many people over there. And I think that's what, you know, we all forget because we live in it 24/7. And sure. I feel like I know more people now than I ever have in my whole life for obvious reasons. But if you really take a step back and look at it from the outside, this space is just so early, and the community is so small in comparison to where it is going to go. And so the biggest problem is actually getting these people at each point of their cryptocurrency journey and getting into this space. And how do we make it as simple, and how do we make it as easy? And the most important thing is fear. How do we take that fear of learning something like this, and empower them to actually get into the space, into the poly? Because, you know, there's a reason it's called layer 2. You just have to keep going down the layers as well. So
yeah, I think it's totally right what you said about how with regards to NFTs on Polygon in gaming, we're so many layers deep on, you know, the culture of cryptocurrency. I mean, I have a cryptocurrency YouTube channel where I explain like all the technology of how Bitcoin works and how Ethereum works, things like that. And I get people, you know, emailing me all the time saying, I want to create a fork of Bitcoin that can do 60 transactions per second, and we're going to revolutionize cryptocurrency as we know it. And it's like, dude, you're 5 years late. You know what I mean? Like, cryptocurrency has moved on, and then it's moved on from there and moved on even from there. And so we're like, I think well and truly the nerds of cryptocurrency. And we don't see it that way because we're in the Discords talking to 1,000 other nerds like us who, you know, well and truly understand the bleeding edge technology. But if you just take a zoomed out approach and look at all the people who have seen, you know, cryptocurrency articles and who are reading about cryptocurrency on Forbes and the New York Times, it really puts into perspective just how like bleeding edge the technology we're looking at is, and how it hasn't expanded into sort of the mainstream consciousness yet at all, not even close.
It's very interesting there, because if you talk to anybody about an NFT, to some people, you know, about NFT, they just say, what's that? They don't allocate any value. And then you tell them, you know, there are places like Nexo where you can actually get a loan if you deposit, it's only certain NFT like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks, but you can actually get money. See, if you deposit that, then they say, oh, really? And they come out, you know, like they're falling off a tree. But yeah, it is interesting because it's evolving. I mean, I think about this lending. I mean, for me, it's like great. I mean, can you get like a loan if you go in your bank with a handbag? I mean, they won't. But maybe in the future, if I've got a Chanel NFT, maybe I can actually get a loan.
Yeah, well, I mean, people have still got their, you know, millions and millions of dollars in the bank, earning them 0.25% on their money, and they don't even realize that you could put that money into even something as safe and simple as Coinbase and be earning sometimes up to 10% APY on your stable coins. And so there's just so much you know, innovation out there that people just don't even know about, and it's disappointing and a bit sad really for people who are shying away from this new technology, because there is so much opportunity to make money and opportunity to learn and be a part of something that's really revolutionary.
I will say this, I think that the space has taken leaps and bounds over the past 6 months, I'm going to say, as a time frame. being in the space, you know, I was telling people what I was doing for a very, very long time and getting laughed at for a very, very long time. And, you know, the constant, to come back to a point you brought up earlier about VR and AR and all these other things and bridging that gap between the metaverse and the reality. I was constantly saying to people, you know, what is reality? You have your senses, you have your sight, touch, feel, taste. I'm missing one there. Touch, feel, sight, taste. Anyway, and I'm saying that, you know, if you've got this NFT or this digital horse, you hear it, that's what it is. And if you have this digital horse that you can essentially see it, you can feel it, you can see, like, bring it into your reality. You know, you got the hypoxic chests, you got virtual reality, you can obviously sound and everything else. I'm like, well, at what point does that not become an actual in real life scenario or an in real life digital asset? Because to me, that's essentially all it is. That's the main difference. And whether or not you're seeing it on a screen or in virtual reality or doing anything like that. And what I've noticed over the past 6 months is these people who I was speaking to 2 years ago and I'm speaking to now, quite close friends, family members, are getting into the space. And it's taken a long time, but it's something where it's becoming mainstream. And, you know, when you get momentum, when you get information, you have media outlets picking it up, like the New York Times, the Sun, etc. That, you know, you saw it happen with ZedRun when they released that article. There was the huge influx of users into the space, and I think we are very close to a big boom into the NFT space where we're going to actually have a lot of mainstream users coming in and learning. So I think, you know, things like Umbria, things like education are really important over this time, because for true believers, this is a really big opportunity to actually bring these people in and take it to the next level and continue that momentum into the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's totally true what you said about augmented reality. I think, like, we augment our reality every time we put on our reading glasses. You know what I mean? And we lead very digital lives just in general. So I don't think it's as much of a leap as might be, you know, instinctual when we talk about, you know, putting more of our lives on the metaverse. You know, when you talk about, you know, augmented reality and virtual reality, people think that that's sort of like a space age futuristic vision, but to a large extent, we've already implemented that into huge parts of our lives. You know what I mean? Like when you watch a TV, you're looking through a portal into another dimension in a way. And so there's no huge leap to bring that further with cryptocurrency and all of the metaverse ideas that seem brand new, but really we've been capitalizing on for the last, you know, 50, 60 years with television.
Yeah, and a new space like NFTs, which is a very distinct space. It's not like anything else. It does take 10 years for something like that to really blossom and come into fruition and have a, you know, full community. And you can see that with Bitcoin. I mean, there was a big hype for Bitcoin in 2013, and then there was one in 2015 and 2016, and then 2018, and then 2020. And so we've had, you know, 5 or 6 big I don't want to say pumps, but big surges in popularity. And we've only had one of those in the NFT space right now. And that is the one that's kind of happening right now or may have just happened. And so we've only seen NFTs really for the last 2, maybe 3 years, if you consider, you know, some of the really old stuff like CryptoPunks. And so there's still so much time left for people to discover NFTs, to develop NFTs, for developers to innovate in the space. And so, yeah, as you said, I think we're still very, very early.
What are you looking as a next big utility adoption, as like the time, right? This is going to be a big event, a big milestone to get more people into the space. What kind of utility event for NFTs?
It's standardizing identity for sure, I think, because we've seen the first wave of NFTs, the profile picture NFTs. And that's just validating your identity on Twitter or wherever it might be in a very kind of crude, primitive way, as in, you know, here's a picture I've uploaded onto Twitter and I'm going to say I own it. And most people who say that they own something probably do. And so we just take that for granted. And that has been a huge, what would you call it? It's been a very influential way to use NFTs. And now what we need, you know, maybe what we need is a way to standardize that ownership and prove that ownership. And not just in a janky way where you upload a picture of it on Twitter and everyone believes you, but a proper set of standardized softwares and frameworks so that we can actually say, you know, here is who I am as per my NFTs.
Okay, interesting, because that comes also to kind of like regulation element in a way.
Yeah, well, the regulators, yeah, there's a whole other side of crypto, which is the regulators and how the regulatory frameworks of, you know, different governments are coming in and kind of shaping the space in that sort of way. But I'm not pessimistic about regulation. I think if regulation comes on too strong, you get a whole bunch of technologies that contradict it, so that, you know, the space can be mediated. And we have coins like Monero and Zcash that have said, whoa, the regulation's coming on too strong. Here's a bunch of privacy functionality now that people can use, because you know, I think the people's preferences always move more quickly than the slowness of government regulation. And we can take that back historically to when people started torrenting movies. You know, people love movies, so they created uTorrent, and they created torrenting and all the, you know, cryptographic technology that comes behind that. And I think the regulatory side moves a lot more slowly than the technical innovation side.
Interesting. Doofy, what's your view on the big utility event, or what are you waiting for in the NFT utility space?
I think we're actually at the tip of the iceberg of it already, which is why I see a big wave coming. And this is brands and celebrities getting involved in the space. Corporations being able to essentially take their assets and digitize them for collector's items, for, you know, true loyalists. And I think that's going to bring in a lot of people into the space. And sometimes you only need one project, you know, to get in. And if your favorite artist or your favorite brand or your favorite whatever from the real world is coming out going, hey, we're doing this on the platform, whether or not I believe it's a good thing that they're doing in terms of where they're releasing it or anything like that. We've just seen Disney with their NFTs on VV, and, you know, that as someone who loves Ethereum network and trying to use their app and everything else, it drove me insane for a long time. But I know that it's brought a lot of people into the space already. And, you know, people were getting into drops at 2 a.m. As an Aussie, I've lived it for the past 2.5 years, and they've got the hype of trying to press a button before someone else and all of these things happening. And that it's addictive. That they're going to have their fun with their brand, whether or not I believe in the project or not, or whatever they're doing, and that'll then cross-pollinate into other things, and they'll start exploring other things, and hopefully they can make some money and then look to build that elsewhere and move along with it. So not only from the brands like Nike, you know, Adidas bringing their NFT out, I think it's going to be a little bit clunky in the beginning, because I just don't think that I think the brands can be looking at it as potentially a little bit of a money grab, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making money, right? So I think that will happen. There'll be a couple of hiccups, but it'll do wonders for the space long term. And you know, again, coming back to ZedRun, taking something like a sport in real life, and how much is essentially dumped into this industry from a corporation and a branding and point of view. Someone like a ZedRun has, in my opinion, the most opportunity to bring sponsorship and corporation money into the space, just because of that intrinsic, you know, I guess, industry influence that horse racing does bring with it, the sport of, you know, kings. And so I think that over this year, 2022, we will see a lot of external money coming into the NFT space, which will just push that next wave, I believe.
Barney?
For me, I think that authentication is going to be something that's very interesting, something that will replace Google Authenticator, because I think Google Authenticator has been a real revolution in security, but it's centralized, and things that are decentralized tend to be better in a security context. And so NFTs, I think, will lend themselves quite well to authentication, because having ownership of an NFT is provable on the blockchain, and there's only one. And so that is a nice kind of setup for something that would be good for authentication. Beyond that, I think there'll be probably 5 or 6 other very interesting innovations that me and no one else can even dream of seeing for the next 12 to 24 months. And so it's going to be interesting either way, what happens in this space in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on authentication, because I've been working and looking into this in what really NFT can bring, for example, for luxury brands. It is all about authenticating the product, but also giving brands more credibility and clients more trust. So that kind of also follow up on what Doofy said about brands. Yes, they're gonna get in. I mean, tonight I just missed a drop from Coach. They were dropping like, I think tonight was 10 NFTs. And if you get one, you could actually get a handbag. But so I missed that, but you know, only 10 probably, you know, there are more than 10 people clicking the button and that's it. So maybe tomorrow.
It's going to be a fight for computer power, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's the thing. Do we have enough power? Do we have enough, I mean, enough energy to kind of like put all these things in the metaverse? I mean, it is like, it is a digital world, it is the virtual world, but we don't know how big is that before it actually get congested and it can't work anymore.
Well, that's totally a massive problem for sure.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
We've seen that happen to Bitcoin. That's the classic example.
Yeah.
And then Ethereum, and then everyone thinks, oh, the next layer, whatever, has come out to solve that problem. Which is, and we have this like 2 years of the golden era, and then maybe we need a layer 3, layer 4, layer 5. And there's this thing in, excuse me, software engineering called Moore's law, which basically states, roughly speaking, that every couple years you need twice as much storage, twice as much computing power, and I just don't see how that scales in the crypto sense. You know, we're probably going to need to really start thinking about how we're scaling our layer 2 solutions like Polygon before it's too late.
Yeah, exactly.
People are building certain applications on Ethereum, and then that became too expensive. So now they're moving over to Polygon. But we don't know what other applications people might develop in the future, which will require 1,000 times more transactions a second or whatever it might be. And so just because right now we have, you know, really cheap gas fees on things like Polygon, doesn't mean that people will invent some really awesome, innovative new technology that will require that technology of the fast throughput of Polygon. And then that will become a problem for the next layer of blockchains to be on top.
Yeah, I think those are kind of like big question for Friday night. It was, it was an awesome conversation, and thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Doofy. Thank you, Oscar and Barney. And I think we kind of discussed quite a lot of things in the NFT space, and definitely everybody is excited about. I mean, I'm excited to see this Red Village game coming, so I can use my Archer.
Definitely, me too.
We'll have to get on and have a game. Thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Doofy.